Well, I must admit, I feel old. I'm Sam McKee, joined by 22-year-old driving star Joe Bongiorno, who's more than 30 years younger than me, and I have no idea what your theme song is that we just heard, your Winter Circle comeback song. I know it ain't country. What is that, and why'd you pick it?
It's Eminem, the song Lose Yourself, and it's just a song that I've always really liked, and I thought it fit, and it's just a song that I chose.
Well, I'll have to see. I have the 8-track for that one. Eminem, right?
Yeah.
I like Eminem, so I'll have to give that a try. Joe, you got the biggest win of your career a week ago tonight. The Valley Victory, 2-year-old colt trot, 489,000 with a colt named Make or Miss for Ronnie Burke. A ton of ability, but a history of breaking, and it looks like you have to nurse him around the turns. How'd you get hooked up with him?
It was a qualifier that Yannick couldn't make, and I just got lucky enough to pick up the drive. And Ronnie said to me, it's very important, just get this colt around there. He has a big race coming up the following week. And I looked at the program and I saw a bunch of breaks. I'm like, well, this is a lot of pressure, you know, like it's a colt that really hasn't been trotting too much. And, you know, so I just nursed him around there, got him around there, and he really, like, he had plenty of trot, but he was really bumpy through the turns. So we made some changes, and the following week he was a different horse, and the following week he was even better than that, and that's when we win the final.
So what's the problem with him on the turns? Does he cock his head around, lean in, bear out, that sort of thing, get steppy, hikey? What is it?
In the qualifier, he was definitely running in the most, and then we slowly worked with him from there and got him a lot straighter, and I think he was sounder, and he was just a totally different horse for the final.
And let's take a look at the stretch drive of the Valley Victory final. This is Joe and Make or Miss on the outside with the yellow wheels there. Doggone Lucky and Corey Callahan in front. Take us through what you're thinking during this stretch battle.
You know, at the head of the stretch, I was like, well, I think I could be second at best. You know, Corey had a pretty big lead on us, and right down by the wire, like the last 100 yards, he was really just trotting away, and, you know, I couldn't ask a horse to trot any more than he was at that point in the mile. And, you know, I knew it was tight on the wire, and I thought I had outright won the race, but after the 5-minute delay, I was all right with the dead heat.
And a dead heat for win in a nearly $500,000 stakes race, just unheard of. Did you and Corey talk on the way back to the paddock saying, oh, I think you won it, no, I think you won it, or how'd that go?
We had absolutely no idea who won it, to be honest with you, and it was funny because we actually had a dead heat the night before, and, you know, with the same two drivers, and I don't think that's probably ever happened before. But it was just a good experience, and I mean, I couldn't have dreamt it. You know, it was just unbelievable.
What does a win like that at age 22 mean for your career and your confidence?
I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, if you would have asked me a month ago, or if you would have said to me a month ago, oh, you're going to win the Valley Victory, and I would have just said with who? You know, I mean, I didn't have any stakes drives all year hardly. And, you know, it was just unbelievable, and I got lucky to be able to pick up such a nice colt.
Now, you realize he looks like a legitimate Hambletonian contender 8 months from now?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to even think about it. And, you know, if the colt comes back good, I know he has the speed and the potential to be a big contender in there.
Now, even though you're only 22, you've gotten a lot of seat time. You started driving when you were 18. I think you've had over 1,000 drives in the last 4 years. What's the biggest difference in Joe Bongiorno today from when you started out?
You know what? I've been to so many different tracks, and I've been to a lot of different scenery, and I think I've grown up over the past 3-4 years, and I just feel more comfortable out there, and I'm driving a lot of power now for Ronnie Burke, and you know, it's just been a hell of a year for me, really.
And Ronnie Burke, of course, the top trainer in the game. He's got the biggest stable. They always seem to be in the right spot, in the right place. How'd you get hooked up with him?
I drove for him about 3-4 years ago in Saratoga. I started driving for him, and I drove a bunch of open horses there for him, and we had a lot of luck together. And then he really stopped bringing horses to Saratoga, and we met back up probably about a year ago, and I started driving a lot of horses, especially when Yannick wasn't around. And especially when stakes started this year, I drove all the doubles at Meadowlands, and I got lucky.
Well, you talk about another dead heat you had with Corey Callahan the night before the Valley Victory. That was with your sister Jen's horse, who's trained by Ronnie Burke. Ask Mucho, let's roll this one in. Probably more pressure in this race because it's a family horse, so you about had to win. And this doggone Corey Callahan nails you at the wire for yet another dead heat.
Definitely the toughest owner I've ever driven for, but I know she's my biggest supporter. And to win the race for her at the Meadowlands was just great. I couldn't have been more proud of the horse, and for my sister, I was very happy for her.
Let's rewind to your first Meadowlands win at the old track. This was in 2012. I think it was February, if I'm not mistaken. Moving Art is the horse. We'll roll it in. We've got Joe highlighted there. And believe it or not, folks, this guy's the king of the dead heats. This one was a dead heat, too. This had to be before the Valley Victory about your biggest thrill, wasn't it?
Yeah, this was actually like a very funny day. I had won a race earlier in the day at Freehold, and then I went all the way over to Yonkers and drove a mare that we got for the first time, a mare named Don't Blame Her, and she ended up being a really good mare for us. And I actually won with her over at Yonkers, which made that my first Yonkers win, and then came over here and had a dead heat here, so it was really a cool day.
I would have been hard to live with if that would have happened to me, to win a race at Yonkers, your first Yonkers and first Meadowlands wins of the same night. The Meadowlands is the Mecca. We've got the best driving colony in the world. It's tough to break in when you're experienced, let alone when you're starting out. You're racing against Tetrick and Gingras, Dave Miller, Campbell, Pierce, the best in the business. Great guys to learn from, but very tough to beat. How difficult has that transition been?
You know what, you just try to drive respectful and treat them the way you want to be treated, and it's worked out so far for me. And the guys are very nice to me, and it's just been a very good go so far. And I feel like it's just getting, better and better by the day, really.
Joe, last spring you were involved in some controversy in a pre-race paddock interview about a couple horses you were driving, and basically indicated they were getting ready for series races the next week, caused quite a firestorm. The judges took you off those horses that night. Any life lessons you learned from that? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. How has that made you a better person?
It was definitely hard to get through, and I think it's affected my career at the time, and it definitely, it postponed success for me in a way. But I think it was something that was definitely misunderstood, and I definitely didn't mean it the way everyone took it, but it's definitely a life lesson, and I moved forward from it, and I'm finally back on the path that I was before that interview had happened.
Well, trust me, I've said things I shouldn't say on TV before, and I wish I could take back too. It's just one of those things about live TV. Sometimes that stuff happens. Let's take a look and get the lowdown on your drives tonight. First race, number 5, Old Studebaker. Actually went a decent middle half last time out. I think he was first up for a while.
Well, he was second over, and I had to swing him 3 wide really early in the last turn, and that's obviously a tough move at this racetrack. And like when I swung him 3 wide, he felt like he was full of pace, and he actually felt full of himself at the time, and he kind of spit the bit at the head of the stretch, it really didn't shock me, like it was a tough trip, and I think if I could trip him out and have him in behind a horse longer tonight, I think he'll be a lot better.
In the third race, you're driving number 2, Amped Up, and I believe you had this horse once before. You just got him back at Freehold. It really turned it around with a big mile.
Yeah, I used to have the horse probably about a year ago, and the horse was successful for us before, and the horse was not having luck where he was before, and so we bought him back, and he went a big mile for us last week at Freehold. It's just, when you feel like you get along with a horse, when you sit behind him, I just feel like I've always gotten along with that horse a lot.
Moving on to the fourth race, number 4, Steady Pulse. He got gunned down by that Sean Valley killer mare, Jungle Genie, who looked really good winning last night here. I'd say even though you got beat, it was a productive race.
I think he raced great last time. It wasn't my best drive ever, that's for sure, but I was very happy with the way he raced. That was his first start in Frank Kaleka's barn, and the horse raced very good, and I actually think that horse will be under bet tonight. I think that horse has a very, very big shot in that race.
Moving on to the 8th race, number 3, Ashley's Husband. You talk about a serious horse. He can just flat out fly. How was his last qualifier?
He could not have been any better. Like, I was just hanging on to him at the wire, and he was very strong. And I couldn't ask him to be any better when he qualified the other day. So if he comes up as good as he was then, I think he'll be just fine tonight.
Then you've got in the 9th race, number 5, Backdraft Hanover, a horse you won with 2 back when he added Lasix.
Yeah. I think this is a little bit tougher of a spot for him. I think he'll be fine, and I think he'll hold his own. But I definitely think it's a tougher spot for him. But I think that the horse should race to his potential, because he did race good his last start at Freehold also.
And one of the horses I can't wait to see tonight in the 11th race, number 3, Windsong Gorgeous. 24 wins in the last 2 years. He's been claimed 20 times since May of 2014. And, they just raced his guts out. He was in every week, usually winging it on the front end. Had to have needed that time off. One qualifier. Is he ready tonight?
I'd like to hope so. You know what I mean? The old man had a lot of time off, and I know Mike brings his back. He brought the horse back slowly, and definitely has him ready. And I'm driving for one of the hottest trainers at the Meadowlands, so I couldn't be happier, and I think that the horse should be just fine in that race.
And the 13th race, number 2, Giant Slayer. You talk about Mike Russo, fresh face to his stable. Russo's giving you a lot of live drives too.
Yeah, Mike's a really good guy to drive for. He doesn't really tell you how to drive, and he's when you get behind his horses, you know that they're always live and ready to go. And first-time Mike horses have seemed to always be good, and he does like that horse. I know that he told me the horse had a good week and he trained well, so I'm excited to drive him for the first time.
22-year-old Joe Bongiorno, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for taking a few minutes of your time to join us. Congratulations on that big Valley Victory win. That'll make Christmas a lot more fun at the Bongiorno household, and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, Sam.
We'll be right back. Wendy Ross and I will tee up tonight's Dash for the G-Notes action. Don't go away.